Hello, hello! Now, I recently made a Nagato commentary, but considering the game I just had, I figured it didn't hurt to revisit the ship again, because I felt that this game reflected the importance of angling your armor quite highly, especially because I'm facing another Nagato. But let's see if I can get rid of this. I got these team lineups up on the side, as you can see. I'm trying out the different types of mods that show those HP bars for my commentary, since I'm commentating the OMC Cup, as some of you might know. And I've been trying different mods, but sadly it appears that these HP bars that I got up here on the sides of my screen, apparently they're permanent, and I can't really get rid of them for this commentary, which is a bit awkward. But that shouldn't be a problem. I mean, I doubt any of you will mind seeing the health bars of all the surrounding ships up on the sides. It shouldn't be too distracting. It's mostly, I don't intend to keep it for my personal play. It's mostly intended for the cup commentaries, so people have a better idea of what the HPs are like. Now, as usual with T7 games, I matched up against a mix of T5s, T6s and T7s. But considering I spend most of this game actually fighting T7s, I figured this would still be a fairly good example. Of course, there's not much point in making a commentary on the importance of angling if I'm fighting New Yorks or something, which really have issues penetrating me regardless of angling or not. Now, as usual with any battleship really on this map, I tend to push quite aggressively up the middle at the start, because there's a lot of battleships usually traveling to A or C on this map, and that means a lot of broadsides being exposed on both sides. For example, this Colorado, he's sailing to A. People are often quite lazy when it comes to angling when they're moving around this side. They don't really bother, they're more concerned about getting from point A to B, or well, in this case to point C as quickly as possible, so they didn't really care too much about angling. I waited for the first volley before I started turning. If you start turning like this straight away, then you're just going to eat all the full broadside volleys. I waited for the full volley before I turned, which means I miss a lot of, or a lot of the volleys aimed at me actually end up missing. Let's see, the Nagato looks fairly good, but I don't know, he might have actually been moving a lot slower than I thought. When you pick targets like this, obviously your priority is broadsiding targets. Those are the juiciest. No, he was moving too slow. I overshot him, which is a bit surprising considering how far away I shot from, so he must be moving very, very slowly indeed, in no hurry to actually get to C. Now I'm of course moving aggressively towards A to support my team. For some reason battleships tend to sit really far back on this map and, well, in general not really support their team that well, but I do the exact opposite. Scharnhorst, T7, they are very tanky when they're angled, but of course, like any battleship, if you end up giving broadside, well, then you end up doing a lot of damage, like 11k volley. Now, I'm kinda sorry about these DDs that are stuck here, but I have to angle away. I'm sorry little guy, but you're in my way right now, and I'm not gonna straighten up my ship, because I need to dodge the shells coming my way, because I know both the Scharnhorst and the Colorado was shooting me. Now when I got undetected, I started turning back, and I realized that by the time I've shot this volley, if he shoots back now, I will have plenty of time to angle my ship, provided he actually shoots back. But considering he didn't pop up on the minimap, it means he didn't even bother shooting, so no issues here, no need to angle steeply. I see a Koenig pushing very aggressively towards our Minakaza, so I immediately kill my speed. I apologize to these DDs that I kinda ended up blocking, but I had to make sure I don't give up unnecessary broadside. Koenig, T5, but once again, yes, these guys have turtleback, but yes, they also eat a ton of AP damage if they give broadside, so that's a 15-16k volley plus the torpedoes he eats from the Minakaza right after, so that was a very unfortunate push for him, or well, unsuccessful might be the better word. In general, pushing in like that, like he did, is just very, very risky, especially since he knew there were battleships on this side. He tunnel visioned on his target instead of paying attention to all the other. Bliska, or Viskavica, or something. Apparently the L in Bliska is actually supposed to be pronounced as a W, so it's Viska. people get mad at me however I pronounce it, so I'm not really that bothered. But of course I take a volley. First of all I call target on it, and second of all I actually shoot at it with my battleship. That's something for some reason a lot of battleships fail to do, and that's actually firing at enemy DDs. Like they might call targets on them, they ask team to focus them, they expect cruisers to shoot at them, but they don't shoot at them themselves. And that always boggles my mind. I mean, they consider them the biggest threat, but they don't bother shooting at them themselves. They're like, well, I'll probably miss, or I won't do much damage, so I won't even bother shooting. And that kind of logic just drives me mad, because I mean, they are your biggest threat. Of course, you should be shooting at them. I mean, even if you only do 1k damage, or let's say 1.5k damage, doing that to a 15k DD is 10% of his HP. Of course, it's going to affect him. Of course, you should take that shot. Like every chunk of damage helps, especially in DD duels where usually if it's somewhat evenly matched, then they end up like living with 2k, 3k HP. So if a battleship joins in, suddenly the battle completely flips to one side, and your team ends up winning a fight they should have otherwise lost. You should always take the shot at close range DDs, sometimes even at long range in case they're the best target. Like in this case, I'm tempted to shoot at him, but he disappeared, so I picked the Myoko instead. Because once again, Myoko, giving full broadside. Myoko is actually very, very well armored and one of the best cruisers in the game, especially at T7. But when you give broads, what the hell? That just showed that I did 1 over penetration and 1 bounce, and I did 10,000 damage. Like if you ever needed confirmation that those markings don't really mean anything at all, right? That they're completely bugged. There's a good example of it. An over penetration and a bounce and over 10,000 damage. Like what? That doesn't even make any sense. So it's just those markings are just completely broken right now. I'm gonna see if I can finish him off. The Mayhem has put up a nice smoke here, so I might as well lend it or borrow it. Don't lend it. It looks like the Ogdenboy has the same ideas. I hope they are aware of the Bliska ahead of them. I'm not actually planning on staying in the smoke, I'm just using it to basically temporarily break line of sight. But I don't actually intend to stop fully in the smoke because, well, first of all, this is not a very good position to shoot from. And second of all, torpedoes, as you just right now see. That's why I didn't want to stay here, because there's a Bliska on the other side, plus whatever other torps might be coming. The Myoko died recently, he might have been torping as well. So yeah, not a good spot to stay. Colorado, giving too much broadside again. Colorado is very much a brawling battleship. So first of all, this guy going like fleeing and trying to take some sort of sniping battle with the Nagato is just ridiculous. At long range sniping battles I have every advantage, so it makes absolutely no sense for him to do that. If he had stayed with the Scharnhorst, is the Scharnhorst Bliska, if both of these battleships had basically supported the Myoko and supported their DD, this battle could look completely different, because we're literally here with just a couple of DDs and this Koenig. So I mean, if they had been here fighting with them, they could very easily have rolled us over. Scharnhorst can easily deal with DDs and can easily penetrate the Koenig from a lot of different angles. And the Colorado is just a great brawling ship. If he had any idea what he was doing in brawling, he could have easily overwhelmed me and forced me to retreat. So this battle on this side was mostly won because their battleships were too afraid to actually take the battle to begin with. Whereas this Koenig followed my lead and pushed in with me, and we supported our DDs quite strongly, dealt with the Myoko, and they dealt with the Bliska themselves. So A is definitively in our control. Turning fully around. If you haven't been paying attention to the minimap, you see that 2 battleships are actually pushing into B. So seeing as these guys have retreated in the base, this is a common mistake you see. Enemy battleships flee into base, and then your team chases them. And then they waste, you see like 2 ships keep 10 ships occupied, as those 10 ships follow them into the base, chase them around there, try to kill them as they kite, and it takes absolutely ages to kill a fleeing battleship, and it's such a waste of time. And meanwhile the enemy team just caps everything and kills any of the intelligent players on their team that are actually trying to win the game. So obviously I'm not going to chase them. I mean, if they retreat all the way to their base, they have effectively made themselves practically useless in this battle. So instead of validating their position by going with them, I'm just gonna go defend B instead of any of foolishness like that. Okay, I think I hit something else than the Koenig and reset. I might have hit the Minakaze by accident there. I think I might have chunked the Minikaze, because I reset first him, and now I hit the Koenig, and I reset the Koenig. And now the cap is almost fully reset. That's actually pretty interesting. Popping up my spotting plane, because I suspect the Minikaze hasn't been spotted in a while, and there's a high chance he might be at B. So that plane might spot any surprising planes going around. Now here's an enemy Nagato. He is giving quite a bit of broadside. Now the thing you have to remember, first of all, the Nagato is going to get buffed. The armor on it is bugged right now. It has much thinner citadel armor than it's supposed to have. But in general, in this ship you really want to avoid giving broadside. The armor is quite strong if you angle it. But if you give broadside in this thing and you face someone with fairly big guns, they are going to have such an easy time citadeling you. So you can see I angle myself fully against the Koenig, and whenever I'm reloading, I'm angling myself against the Nagato. Now the Nagato here is giving a lot of broadside. A lot of broadside. I'm just gonna slow down here. I don't even mind if I'm gonna ground here a bit, because it's more important to stay angled than it is to basically end up giving broadside or something similar. Because there's no risk for me grounding here. I'm not making HE spam. The only thing I am is fighting another Nagato. And you see, when I angled, I bounced all his shells, whereas he gave me broadside and I instantly citadeled him. He's still giving me far too much broadside. You can't do this. He's even turning to give me even more because he has to dodge torpedoes. And when you give this much broadside, as I said, citadel fiesta. Constant citadels. And of course, partially it's due to this bugged armor, but this kind of situation has always been the case for the Nagatos. Whenever you give broadside in the ship, you become very vulnerable. That's why I always say that the HP pool on the ship is very misleading. You might think that you're tankier than a Colorado or something like that, but you're really not. Unless if you angle, you can get kinda close. But if you don't angle, you are just so squishy. I've shot him 2 times, I got him 2 volleys. This is the 3rd time I shoot him, and this time I double citadel him. The 2nd citadel did 118 damage, but still, that was 4 citadels in a duel against an enemy Nagato. That's just absolutely ridiculous, and that was at fairly long range as well. And that just shows you the importance of, if you're fighting against any sort of battleship in your Nagato, you always stay angled. Even if you might not be able to deal a full broadside of damage, you really want to make sure that you're not giving him that juicy full broadside, because if you do, you will get punished extremely heavily. Now, the Colorado is behind me, and he's getting a bit of a good angle on me right now. But honestly, at this range, I'm not really that worried, because as I said, the Colorado is more of a brawler. I mean, his accuracy is decent, but he's definitely more a brawling type of battleship, and any snipes at me is going to be heavily influenced by RNG. And in general, I see that he's going for A, but really, a Colorado, once he's sailed all the way to his base, it's going to take him such a long time to get back to A, that I just figure it's more important that I go cap B, because I can delay him at A as much as I want later on. I'm not really in any hurry to take that fight, because both him and the Scharnhorst have managed to basically isolate them from the battle. One of the guys chasing them died, I think, but we still have a Minikaze in there who's basically, well, keeping him occupied. If our T5DD is keeping their T7 battleship occupied at their base, then fine. I'm perfectly okay with that. That's a decent trade in my eyes. Now this Koenig, I was hoping he would pop up, but it looks like he grounded. Now he's reversing. I see that Mayhem is torping him. I'm just gonna shoot a quick volley at him as soon as I see any sort of indication of him. I'll let him retreat into my shells. 5k, and there's the torps killing him. Got my Confederate. Oh, I've done 159,000 damage. So, I haven't really even done any sort of specific complex sailing. All I did was pushed into A, and then I pushed into B. I didn't waste time with my battleship, that's important. I didn't waste time going to chase the Colorado. I didn't waste time starting to flee and being awkward about pushing in and supporting my team. And I didn't waste time in my decision making to push into B. I'm constantly trying to keep myself in a central place of the battle where I basically can shoot at anything. On small maps like this, you see the white ring on the minimap represents my range. And you see when I'm sitting here at B, you can see just how insane this range on the Nagato is on these small maps. I can literally affect every single part of the map. I can shoot all the way to C, I can shoot all the way to A, I can shoot all the way to their base and all the way to our base. If you get into a central position with your Nagato, you will never ever get into a position that, wow, I have nothing to shoot at. You always have something to shoot at in this ship. Now this Colorado, as I said, I'm already capping B, and he still hasn't made it down to A. That's what I said about US battleships until T8. If they remove themselves from the battle like this guy did, they're just gonna waste so much of their own time, really. If any from our team had been dumb enough to chase him, well, then he would have been somewhat useful in kiting them around. But in general, he just ended up wasting a lot of his own time. You see, I'm keeping myself angled. I only started turning once I knew I was getting undetected. That was a bit too much broadside and he instantly got one penetration, but considering I was stopped and then I moved again, it was unlikely he would get a perfect volley. Now he's reloading, so I obviously take this chance to turn around. The Minikaze is still fighting the Scharnhorst. There's a second, there's an enemy Minikaze somewhere as well. But honestly, oh, and here's another point I should highlight. I'm actually going straight for his hull. Usually when I talk about fighting enemy battleships that angle against you, I talk about focusing their guns and their superstructure. But at low tier battleships in general, they can overmatch themselves and the same tier and lower tier. And the Nagato has absolutely no issues overmatching the frontal armor of the Colorado. That's why the last ranked season was a bit wonky with the battleships, because they could constantly overmatch each other. At T8, where if you angle perfectly against someone, you can pretty much negate all the damage. Whereas in T7, even if you angle yourself perfectly bow on, you can still get overmatched from the front because of the overmatch mechanic in the game. That's why you shouldn't actually angle yourself perfectly nose on at T7, but you should rather give a bit of a shallow angle. I should be able to demonstrate it. I'm actually going to go. The Scharnhorst killed the Minikaze and is now pushing in, so I want to angle against him because the Scharnhorst can definitively pen my armor. Now I should be able to demonstrate the bow on overmatch here. And not too good. It hit more the superstructure. I don't think that was the best possible. But you see, I'm angling myself, so I'm sailing away from the Scharnhorst, not giving him the perfect broadside. I'm also slowing down because the Minikaze is pushing into B. Considering I'm now angled against both the Colorado and the Scharnhorst, I decide that this is a good chance to maybe help my Ognavoy out with the fight. As I said, always try to help your DDs out. Try to skew the match in your DDs' favors. If your DDs are leading, then the enemy battleships have to worry about Torbs and such. Okay, I didn't do that much damage. I did, what, 2.5k? But then you consider that the Minikaze has 10k HP, and you realize I just, well, does he even have less than 10k? About 10k, 10-11. So you realize I just chunked away like 25% of his HP, and suddenly my Koenig has a much easier time of taking that fight. Now I should be able to demonstrate it. First of all, I'll demonstrate the overmatch mechanic. You see he's angling perfectly bow on, and this is exactly what I said you shouldn't do in T7. He's perfect bow on, and I'm shooting straight at his bow. Smack. Straight through him. I even got over penetrations. 12,000 damage straight through his nose. And now you see my angling. I actually don't angle perfectly against him, but I give him more of a like frontal broadside. Look what happens when he shoots me back now. Come on. Come on, Mr. Colorado. Give a good volley to shoot. There we go. Bounced every single shell. I took 0 damage from a full Colorado volley at 3.9 kilometers. And that's the importance of angling armor. See, that's what happens if I try to shoot him. The angle is now 0 damage. Actually, I think my shells went into the water, but I shoot higher now and wreck him. But you saw the comparison there with my angle, the angle I was at. If I had been nose on and he would have shot there, he could even have citadeled me from that range. He could easily have frontal citadeled me from that range, and hell, he might have even killed me. That's how much damage you do when you overmatch the bow and you hit straight into the frontal barbette. From that range, I think it's very possible he might have citadeled me. And I easily overmatched him as well. I don't have the penetrative power to actually citadel him, but I did have the power to basically wreck him anyway. Do 12k damage. You briefly saw, by the way, how much damage that Scharnhorst did when I showed broadside, 12k. But I'm not too worried about it, since I just want to turn into him and try to kill him before the game ends. But I think it's unlikely I will be. This actually ended up being a 2 versus 2 here at the end, but because of our capting and such, we are still going to take the game here. The game is just about to end. I won't have time to kill him. 1000 points, game ends. But you saw the comparison, that's really what I wanted to demonstrate. First of all, the enemy Nagato that gave me broadside, I hit him with 4 citadels, 203k damage. All those 4 citadels were all against the Nagato, and of course the comparison between the Colorado's angling and mine. He gave me the full nose-on approach, he got destroyed. I gave him the slightly angled approach, I took 0 damage. And that's something I really felt like needs to be highlighted when you're playing, especially these Japanese battleships. And in general, well, all lower tier battleships. Don't try to go for the full nose-on advantage. You can see 29 hits on him, almost 70k damage. He has, where is he? 20 hits, 23k damage. So I did on average, what, almost twice as much damage per shell? Even more than twice as much damage per shell. I mean, that's the comparison, that's the difference. And that's something I feel like people really need to keep in mind when they're trying to level up their battleships. Anyway, that was my bit relook onto the Nagato. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'll talk to you later.